Hello, I'm Felicia Jackson.
And I am Giulia Bottaro.
Welcome to Shaken Not Burned. Every day we're bombarded with headlines of crisis and disruption, from climate shocks to inequality to AI upheaval.
But behind the noise are patterns, choices, and opportunities. What we need is sustainability literacy, the clarity and confidence to interpret complexity, see trade-offs, and make decisions.
Our podcast goes beyond the headlines to uncover how real people are tackling change and what we can all learn from them.
And you can use these ideas to stay steady, even unshakable, in a world that feels uncertain.
This is Shaken Not Burned.
Welcome to Shaken Not Burned. I'm your host, Giulia Bottaro. Think about the products you use every day at home. The hand soap, the cleaning spray, the sponge for the dishes, the face cream, the toothpaste. Why do you buy certain brands with certain packaging and certain ingredients? Whether it's because they were the products of our childhood, or the advertising has convinced us, or the price is just too convenient, we may not spend much time questioning our purchase decisions. It feels like consumers are pushed towards disposable items that contain powerful chemicals that may not necessarily be good for people or the environment. But is there another way? We discuss how to challenge the consumer product status quo through the lens of the menstrual cup with Ira Guha, founder at Asan Cup. Good morning, Ira. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Lovely to be here, Giulia. Thank you.
Tell me a bit about your experience and how you got here.
So, I grew up in a city called Bangalore in southern India, and I moved to the UK when I was 18. But growing up, in my community, I already knew about the challenges that women had with cloth bags and also disposable sanitary pads because in India, there isn't a very good waste disposal system. So you don't just throw pads away. Very often, girls have to collect the pads and burn it themselves, which releases toxic fumes. So when I first came across a menstrual cup living in the UK, which is a reusable product made from silicone, um, it just seemed so convenient, like not just good for the planet, but also very convenient for yourself because you just need one. And not only did I start using a cup, I also gifted it to many women in India, and they really took to it and, asked me for more. And every time I was traveling from London back to Bangalore, I would carry like 10 cups with me to hand out to women. And that's actually how I realized what an amazing solution they are, both for our health, our wallet, because they're very affordable, and then also for the planet. And that's how I decided to start Asan. Asan is a social enterprise that it works to end period poverty and also landfill waste generated by pads and tampons.
In what way is it a social enterprise? What does it mean for you?
Being a social enterprise for us means that we actually redistribute our profits. So we developed a new menstrual cup called the Asan Cup. It's the world's easiest menstrual cup to insert and remove. I can show you here. It has a little ring on the end that makes it really easy to take out. And what makes us a social enterprise is that every time we sell an Asan Cup, we donate one for free to a woman or girl who doesn't have access to safe period care. And we've already enabled over 100,000 low-income women and girls globally to safely attend school and work during periods.
Do you sell in the UK, Europe? What are the main markets?
We sell in the UK, Europe, and India. So you can find us on our website, asancup.com, or you can find us on Amazon, which is a really easy way to get your first Asan Cup.
Amazing. So I really wanted to discuss this topic with you because I think menstrual products are, in my view, emblematic of the status quo for consumer products. For me, I grew up in Italy and no one ever told me that there are reusable items. I always grew up that, okay, my life will always be using disposable items for decades to come. And I discovered reusable products in my early 20s. And it felt like a really big secret that finally I am privy to. I think it's quite fascinating. And so why don't we talk about maybe the history of menstrual products? Which ones are the most commonly used? Why are they so popular?
It's by far the most commonly used menstrual products, and this honestly hasn't changed in over a century. Disposable pads and tampons. And the reason why these are the status quo is very much that there's a commercial interest in keeping disposable products as the status quo. I think there's two kind of problems here. The first is that most of the menstrual products we use were designed and marketed by men. So people who never were able to use the products themselves, right? The big companies, not to name them, that distribute menstrual products globally, because they're run by men, it isn't a user thinking, oh, is this comfortable for me? It's
That's why
commercially
some of
minded
them are
man.
so
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
so uncomfortable because you never use it yourself, right? You're just thinking about selling it. And then I think the second problem at play is obviously there is a commercial motivation for period products to not to last, not to be disposable, not to be good quality, because then you will buy them every single month. So if you think about even a supermarket, if a supermarket is stocking pads, then the consumer comes in every single month to buy pads. If a supermarket starts to stock period underwear or cups, then the consumer comes in, buys it once, and doesn't need to buy it again. And then the supermarket is going to have less profits. So I think it's this combination of women not being part of the innovation behind period products traditionally. We're seeing that changing now, which is amazing. And then also this commercial interest of having disposable products just being so much more profitable, which is the reason why pads and tampons have been and continue to be the status quo.
Just to get an idea, how long does a menstrual cup last? And also, what are the other reusable products?
Maybe I can explain a bit about what a menstrual cup is.
Sure.
It's a bell-shaped cup made from this amazing material called medical silicone. It's a biocompatible material. It's the same thing that goes into breast implants and heart stents, so it can actually, live safely inside your body. And a cup is inserted inside you. And unlike a tampon, which absorbs your flow, a cup just collects it and then you take it out, empty it, wash it, and you can use it again. And the Asan cup, because it's very high quality silicone, can be reused for 10 years. And that's equivalent to 2,500 pads or tampons. So it's an incredible cost saving. Other reusable period products, there are menstrual discs, which are like cups made from silicone, but they're shaped like discs and they sit at the top of your vagina and kind of block the flow there. Also very safe and, very good for your health because they don't have any toxins in them. And then there's also reusable cloth pads and reusable period underwear, which absorb your flow. And then you wash them and then you dry them and then you can use them again. And period underwear, cloth pads can also be reused for around 2 years. So again, you can switch from pads and you don't have to throw anything away. You save money and they're really good for the environment too.
How can you tell that it's time to change your cup or underwear, period underwear?
So with a cup, to be honest, they're extremely durable. So unless your cup has visible signs of damage, it's been cut or something like that, you really don't need to change it. It's normal for cups to discolor a little bit, and that's completely fine. The way you keep a cup clean is that you can boil it to sterilize it once a month or between periods. And Asan also has this amazing cleanser where with one drop you can sterilize your cup. And honestly, you can use it for a decade, and you really don't have to change it. With period underwear, because it's apparel and it's textiles, you can think of it very similar to your own underwear. Everybody replaces their underwear after, say, a year or two because you can tell that it's cloth, so it's frayed or it's damaged or it's no longer holding your flow. So with underwear, think of it like period underwear, think of it like similar underwear. You would probably want to, discard it and get a new pair every 2 years or so.
When you're talking about the fact that the way to clean the cup is to sterilize it, boil it, it makes me think, well, as long as somebody has facilities to cook, then they're good to go, and which makes sense to
Yeah.
just be distributed in the global south, for example.
Absolutely. I mean, and also it just takes so little water because if you think about period underwear or even the cloth rags that many women in the global south use, you need a lot of water to wash it and to scrub it clean. Whereas for a cup, you just need, a tiny amount of water, the same as you would for a cup of tea. So in areas where water is scarce or water is expensive, it's really great to use a cup because you need very little water to safely clean it.
And also, when you talk about the concept of period poverty, it exists here as well in the global north. So, for example, the UK, if I'm not mistaken, has reduced the extra tax on disposable period products. But in Italy, for example, they're actually quite expensive because they're counted as sort of like, I suppose, beauty products, like luxury products, not a necessity. So it ends up being quite costly, especially if you have a heavy flow and need to change them a lot.
Absolutely. And I think this brings us back to the point that we spoke about at the start of the episode about, firstly, a lot of the regulations being made by men who don't have periods themselves. So they don't understand that this is a necessity. And also about the commercial interests, when it comes to VAT and taxing and the money you can collect from them. So I think these are two really problematic reasons why period products are expensive, period products are uncomfortable, and period products are taxed, because the people designing the products and making the regulations about them do not need them and do not have periods.
And now we can talk about the impacts on health and environment, which, of course, these products are made of plastics, but there are also lots of chemicals in there. So can we touch on this point?
One of the major problems we have in the UK and Europe is that manufacturers in making period products are not regulated. It's treated as, general consumer
Interesting.
products. And manufacturers do not have to list ingredients on the pack. So when you think about food, when you go to the supermarket and you buy a chocolate bar, you see every single ingredient listed on the back. But when you buy a tampon, just like the chocolate bar, you're putting the tampon inside your body, but you never see ingredients because these are unregulated products and there's no need for them to put the ingredients on the product. Your average tampon will have hundreds of different chemicals from plastics. It will have perfume to make it smell a certain way. It will have bleach to make it white. It will have pesticides in the cotton, and it will have plastics, which have all kinds of toxins. I think there was a study that recently found lead in tampons. But because the manufacturer just says tampon and doesn't say what goes into it, none of us actually know that these chemicals are inside them. I think that's really problematic. And that's why with the Asan cup, we treat it as a medical device. Even though it's not regulated in Europe, we ourselves have the medical device certification. So Asan is a medical device manufacturer, which means that we go through very rigorous testing. It's literally one ingredient. The entire cup, it just has one ingredient, medical grade silicone. And our medical grade silicone goes through very rigorous tests to prove that it's safe for the human body, which none of the pads and tampons need to go through because they're not regulated.
And of course, all these chemicals leach into the environment once the item is thrown away.
Absolutely. So your average pad or tampon takes over 500 years to decompose. So I'm going to tell you a crazy fact, Giulia. A tampon or a pad that your grandmother used is still sitting in landfill today.
And isn't that depressing?
Or the
Wow.
first one you used when you were a
Yeah,
girl, when you were
absolutely.
12 or 13 and you got your first period. Think of that pad that you threw away. It's lying in landfill somewhere.
When I die, that pad will be thriving still in landfill.
It's crazy.
Do you think people are aware of this? Are they aware of the fact that disposable items are so bad, but are they also aware that there are plenty of alternatives out there that can fit anybody's needs?
Part of the reason why many people aren't aware, I think, is because periods are such a taboo. When you get your first period at school or at home, you're just given a pad. No one tells you anything. They just say, take this pad and that's that. Because we don't talk about periods openly, then we don't discuss the different options available. And because of the taboo, it's something that you just deal with very quickly and you don't research, you don't look into, you don't have conversations with your friends about, again, if you compare it to nutrition, right? Like if you think about weight management or diets or health foods, we have such long, open conversations on social media with our friends, with our families, is this food group good for you? Is ultra processed food good for you? And we would never do the same with pads and tampons because it's a taboo. And in terms of knowing about the reusable options and the healthy options out there, again, you'll only know about them if you see them on your supermarket shelf. But the reason that you don't see them is because of this vested interest that distributors and manufacturers have to sell disposable products to make money. So I think until reusables are hyper visible in the way that pads and tampons are, like you go to a bathroom, there's a vending machine, you see pads and tampons. You go to the supermarket, you see pads and tampons. You go to a pharmacy, you see pads and tampons. So that's all you're going to see all the time. Unless we can make that shift where reusables are as visible. They're not hidden on Amazon. They're not hidden on, the websites of these companies, but they're visible, then people aren't gonna, like, the mainstream is not gonna know about them.
Yeah, I think it's only very recently that I've seen more of those in the shops. Maybe I've seen the menstrual cup in some big pharmacies, or period underwear in big shops. Your small little corner supermarket, I mean corner shop, not let's not even think about that, but they're not gonna have it. So what do you think we need to do to spread the word more about these amazing products?
I think it's really to break the taboo by speaking really openly, for example, like we're doing on your podcast now. But if you have used a reusable period product and have seen how powerful it is, it's really important to share that with your friends and family. Again, as women, this is not something that we're used to talking about, Like you'll tell your friend, like, oh, I tried this amazing gym class. You should go to the gym. In the same way, you should tell your friends, like, oh my God, I stopped using pads and I now use a cup. And like, you have to try it. It's so good. So talk about it to all of your friends, and that's how the word will spread.
Well, I can say proudly that I've been that person when I discovered that big secret that I mentioned earlier that became my personality for like a year or two. And I was telling everyone, well, because I had such a good experience and that I hated pads so much. They were so uncomfortable. And I remember when I was like 12, I was like, ugh, I have what, like 40 years ahead of this every month. That's insane. And now I'm not bothered at all. So yeah, that's how it starts, I suppose. And, when you tell people about the menstrual cup and the fact that, your company is a producer. So what are people's reactions to that?
I would say curiosity is probably the number one reaction. It could be positive or negative curiosity. Many people look at a menstrual cup and immediately think, oh, I don't know how that looks big. How would it fit inside me? Or would it be messy? And all of these are very natural, normal conversations, and they come from the place of periods being taboo, of inserting things being taboo. And I think that's why education is really important. Like Asan really focuses in all our digital content and all our ads on education and having that conversation. But even when I tell men what I do, I would say the number one reaction is curiosity. People always say, tell me more.
Amazing.
They don't say, oh, I don't want to talk to you. They say, oh,
Mhm.
I've never heard about that. Can you tell me how it works? So, I've heard of that, but I've got all of these questions, or I'm feeling nervous. Can you tell me how it works?
And what are the challenges that have you encountered as a brand that is challenging the status quo we were discussing earlier? So going against what the entire, more or less, consumer products retail world tells us to do.
It's definitely behavior change, and getting each individual to change behavior is a huge challenge, because changing something that we have been told to do from a very young age, it's very difficult to unlearn certain habits. And when it comes to using pads and tampons, there's definitely a behavior around unwrapping a fresh package, peeling a tampon out of a plastic wrapper, which makes your brain think like, oh, this is sterile, this is clean. And to get people to think, actually, no, I can reuse it. It's safe to reuse a cup. It's safe to boil a cup and clean it. It's actually safer. It's a huge behavior change, and the education around that is really important. But it the reason why it's challenging is, it even on social media, like on TikTok, it takes a while. So if you want to sell a cute bracelet or if you want to sell a skincare solution, you can just say like, oh, look at this. It looks so nice. Buy it today. But if Asan works with an influencer and we send her a menstrual cup, she can't try it immediately. Maybe she's not on her period. And even when, so she can't tell people to buy it. And even when she does try it, it takes 2 or 3 months to get really used to how it works and to become an advocate. So it's a slow shift. So I think that behavior change is quite difficult.
How about investors, the investment world? How has it been speaking with them?
Asan has been really lucky that we have managed to attract some incredible mission-aligned impact investors. We have an amazing group of reproductive health and sustainability investors who are not just investing for commercial return, but are investing because they are so aligned to the mission. And they also, my investors are on my advisory board. They really help me grow the business, open up new doors, introduce me to contacts, to manufacturers, to distributors. So that really strong mission, not just of sustainability, but of, donating cups in the global south has really helped me attract the right kind of investor.
Can you think of any other consumer products where we could have had a similar conversation? So the status quo is disposable, but actually there are so many other reusable options out there.
If you look at your bathroom, I think that's a great place to start because almost everything that we have in there is disposable. Soap, shampoo, toothpaste, hand wash, and they all come in plastic packaging as well. And today there are many really great refill options. So you just have to buy a dispenser for hand wash, and then you can get the refill without the plastic packaging. Similarly, you can get soap and shampoo, which comes in bars that don't have packaging. But again, these are quite big behavior changes because you're so used to just going to the supermarket, not even thinking about it and picking up the easiest thing there. And the refill options, most often they're only available online. So it's a very similar, behavior change where you need to say, I'm gonna think this through, I'm gonna think through the ingredients, and I'm gonna go that extra step to get something healthier, to get something more sustainable. The difference, I think, between those products and a menstrual cup is that there's no taboo. Like there's no taboo around washing your hands. There's no taboo around shampoo. And so I was thinking before this podcast about, are there behavior changes that were more taboo that people had to overcome? And it's not a consumer product, but one thing I think is a little bit similar is maybe meditation and mental health. Maybe 10, 20 years ago, the concept of meditation for your mental health or taking care of your mental health was just weird. Like if someone brought that up, you'd be like, that just sounds really weird and not for me. And today it's much more spoken about. It's so normal to say I meditate for my mental health. And that's because there was a real conversation and people opening up and people talking about a topic, mental health, that used to be really taboo, which has now become much more open. And I think that periods need to undergo a similar shift where people stop hiding periods and start talking about it and saying, actually the products we're using are not good for us. And these are the reusable products that are not just healthier, they're better for the planet. And I think that openness could help have a different shift in the taboo around periods.
Yeah, absolutely. Remove the shame around something completely natural that happens to around 50% of the population. I think I was reading a book about periods, and I think one of the things that struck me a lot was that everyone has more or less a negative experience of their first ever period. It doesn't have to be anything particularly traumatic, but just, the shock, the surprise, and it really shouldn't be like that. It's natural. And if we start early talking about removing the taboo, and then can help us, maybe not feeling the dread that I felt when I was 12, thinking I will need to use these horrible things every day. Sorry, every month
And
of my
I think,
life.
instead of it being this like very sheltered conversation where at school, where maybe in one sex ed lesson you're just told about biology in a very kind of impersonal way, it would be so much nicer if actually periods are celebrated, because periods are the reason why we have human life. that's what a period is. It's your body's ability to reproduce, right? And you only have a period when you don't get pregnant. So periods should be celebrated. Like they're part of what makes us amazing. They're part of life, and they're completely normal.
Absolutely. And we don't know enough about them. I mean, I'm going slightly off topic here. We're talking about the products, but it does go together. I want to give a little shout out to one of my favorite museums ever, the Vagina Museum in London, which is all about education and science. And I learned more about periods there in one afternoon than in my entire life. And there are so many resources out there to learn more. And yeah, well, I'm glad I got to discuss this in our podcast about sustainability. Thank you so much, Ira. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Just to check out asancup.com and follow us on Instagram at asancup, and that there's some really incredible work Asan does around menstrual health education and breaking taboos in rural India and Africa. So yeah, go have a look and support our work.
Thank you so much again for this amazing conversation. Thanks to our listeners for tuning in once again. We will add all the links in the show notes. We are on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and also we have a newsletter, so make sure you follow us there. See you next week.